They say that if someone looks into a mirror and recites the name Candyman 5 times, he'll appear. The mirror will be covered with blood and bees. Let's check and see. Candyman, Candyman, Candy. Man, y'all better know my black ass ain't even finna play like that. Hell nah. Try somebody else.
You are now listening to The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay on Spotify. A podcast aimed to uncover and share the stories behind heinous and insane acts that have been overlooked or overshadowed by mainstream media, getting justice for the voices that can't speak.
What's up, y'all? It's your girl Kay, and I am the host of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. A podcast designed to focus on crimes committed in the Black community that you don't hear about in mainstream media, giving a voice to those victims that have otherwise been silenced. Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast with me, Kay, the Texas girl in a Georgia world, baby. Ladies, how y'all feel? Fellas, y'all all right? Or maybe I should say ghouls and goblins, because, this past Friday was Halloween and, everybody was dressed up in costumes, and the scarier the better for me. I got to take my little one trick or treating. I dressed up as Steve Urkel for one of my work days, and then I also dressed up as Grumpy Bear, which is very appropriate for me. But, had a good little time. But it is now Sunday, November 2nd, 2025, and your girl is still feeling a little scary. But in a good way though, because like I said, I love Halloween. And this episode is definitely giving Halloween vibes. Okay. Now, sadly, I missed the concert for The Boy Is Mine because y'all know I was supposed to be at the concert on Saturday. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. I was in my feelings a little bit. I mean, I had my outfit, I had my hair laid, I was ready to be singing my ass off all night long. But I'm gonna try my hardest to go to the show in Atlanta in December. So, I still wanted to make sure that I gave y'all this little spooky episode because woo, when I read it, woo child, yeah, it shook the shit out of me. Anywho, what y'all sipping on? Your girl is over here kicking back, sipping on something called Witch's Brew, which is triple sec, Midori, and lemon juice. And it is quite tasty, I will say. I'm on my third cup. Witch's brew. So I hope y'all got y'all something to sip on because this episode tonight, yeah, you gonna need it, okay? So let's go ahead and get into it. Hop on in and buckle up. We gonna need a full tank of gas or two so that we can head back to 1987 in Chicago, Illinois. That's right, Shot Town. Now, we've all heard the story of Candyman. There's been many adaptations of it, some believing that, Daniel Robitaille was the son of a slave who grew up in high society and became a well sought after painter. While being commissioned for a job, he had gotten involved with a white woman named Carolyn Sullivan and gotten her pregnant. So he was captured and drug into a field where he was murdered for committing the ultimate sin of interracial love. And the child that was born later was a daughter named Isabel. Now, Daniel, he had his arm sawed off, he was dismembered, and his body was covered in honey so that hundreds of bees would sting him to death. But when the goons got back, yeah, he was still alive, disfigured, but alive. Now, the man that commissioned him to paint his daughter, he brought out this like magic mirror that captured Daniel's soul, and Daniel cursed it as he was dying. And so, supposedly, his spirit lives on, and he's summoned when someone says his name 5 times in the mirror, basically risking their life. Until ultimately, the descendant of the woman that he had loved by the name of Helen, she starts looking into mysterious murders that have been happening at Cabrini Green housing projects in Chicago. Now, Y'all should be familiar at this point because this is the story of Candyman. This is the movie that we've all seen. There was a woman by the name of Helen, and she starts looking into the murders that's been going on at Cabrini Green. We know Cabrini Green is treacherous, okay? If you know anything about Chicago, Cabrini Green, woo, mm-mm. So she learns that there is a baby, Anthony McCoy, who was kidnapped. Now, this baby was supposed to represent the child that Daniel and his lover created. But remember, they actually created a daughter. But this baby is supposed to represent that child. Now, Daniel is determined to capture Helen and take her back with him, along with this baby, Anthony, by burning them together in the bonfire. But Helen sacrifices herself so that she can save baby Anthony, who later embodies the legend himself. This is some sick shit. Okay. Now, that's the story that we have all come to know and watch on our screens. But did anyone ever think that this story was based on an actual crime? Well, it was. And tonight, you'll learn how Daniel Robitaille really came to be. Y'all know what time it is. Let's get it. This week's case involves Ruthie McCoy, the victim, and the infamous murderer of the week. Well, it's a bit of a mystery, but they're so called the Cabrini Green Killer. Ruthie Mae McCoy was born January 13th, 1935, to Sarah Jones and Hayes McCoy in Hughes, Arkansas. She was one of 8 children. Now, I couldn't find all of their names, but I know she had brothers Hayes McCoy Jr., Haywood, and Cleotis McCoy. And then she had a sister, Beatrice McCoy Gilbert. Of course, there are more, obviously, but this is just who I could find. Now, when she was a young child, she and her family decided to relocate to the south side of Chicago in hopes that they could have a better life for their kids. Now, Chicago back then had a completely different vibe than it does now. So the chances of a better life were a lot higher. However, the chances were not that great for the McCoy family. Ruthie Mae's father, he was busting his ass to take care of them kids that he made. He had his family living on the south side and he worked as a loader every day, loading coal onto wagons to make ends meet, but the family still struggled. Ruthie Mae attended Phillips High School for a little more than a year before things kind of started to take a turn. See, she started showing signs of mental illness, and it only got stronger and more noticeable the older that she got. It became more noticeable once she reached her 20s. She began talking to herself and her behavior just completely changed. Her family was, the typical family that thought that they could just pray it out. Mind you, this is still in the 50s at the time frame, so there's not therapists and psychologists and all of that available at the drop of a hat. If you had a family member that was a little touched, then you just kept them in the house or, had anointing oil poured on them. But that's how it was for Ruthie. Her family thought that they could just pray it out of her, and sadly, some people still think that to this day. But her mother, Sarah, was a devout Baptist. Like, I'm talking about go to church every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, honey. First one in, last one out kind of Christian. Falling out on the ground from catching the Holy Ghost, you got to take the prayer cloth and cover it over because she done fell out everywhere. That kind of a devout Christian, okay? And her sister Beatrice felt bad because it seemed like Ruthie wasn't getting the help that she needed. Mainly because they mama blamed Ruthie's mental illness on her wayward walk from the Lord. Like, oh, you stray from the Lord and you get punished. And well, her punishment was becoming mentally ill, apparently. That's how her mom felt, which is crazy to me. And her sister said, there's a such thing as a devil, but you see, people have to want to get help. People have got to get help. And she tried, but their mom was just so, set on no, when you stray from the Lord, this is your punishment. You're mentally ill because you strayed from the Lord. Mm, okay. Well, Ruthie wasn't as off as people thought because Ruthie had a social life, one that had a man. Now, she never married. She was 27 when she gave birth to her one and only child, Vernita, at Cook County Hospital. I guess you could say Papa was a Rolling Stone because shortly after she found out she was pregnant with Vernita, Oh, he dipped. And when a man bails on his responsibilities and, leaves a woman to handle everything, we become very, very bitter. Like, as my homie says, that's when the BBB is activated, the bitter black bitch. I, I know I have definitely activated the triple B a couple of times. Okay. But Ruthie Mae started harboring a lot of resentment from men in general. And it was like a switch went off. Like Vernita, that poor baby, she had to stay with relatives off and on throughout her childhood because her mother was institutionalized several times. She became medicated and she was somewhat chill, I guess, when she was on medicine. But then she had days where she would just flip out and you would see Ruthie on the street and she would cuss you 6 ways to Sunday for no reason. And Vernita, she would be confused. Like she would be like, "Mama, why are you cussing these people? You don't know them. You might get hurt." Which is true because you cuss the wrong person on the wrong day, baby. Rag tag that ass, run up, get done up. You know what I'm saying? But Ruthie wasn't worried about that. She was 5'11" and a solid 251 pounds. That's a thick chick, okay? Statuesque, baby. That's all I'm saying. Represent, us tall chicks, we need love. Hey, I'm 6 feet myself. And baby, thicker than a snicker. Y'all better know. Anyway, now Ruthie wasn't some horrible person. She loved her daughter Vernita, and she was out there surviving. She worked some minor jobs here and there. She worked as a laundromat attendant and she worked as a housekeeper. The problem was because of her mental health, no one wanted to keep her too long. And ultimately, she was constantly being fired. So to survive, she relied a lot on welfare. And because of this, she and Vernita ended up moving into Dearborn Homes, which was the projects on the south side of Chicago. They lived there for a while, and Ruthie and Vernita kind of, bounced around the area in different projects for a minute. Now, I don't know if it's because of what she saw growing up or if it was genetic or what, but Vernita had a few brushes with the law too. And she had gotten arrested for aggravated battery in 1983, and she got locked up in Cook County Jail. And while she was in jail, Ruthie became Grandma Ruthie because she's taking care of her daughter's 1-year old Bobby. But then things got bad because Ruthie's apartment flooded as she was living in the basement of Humboldt Park. So she had to apply for emergency housing in May of 1983. Now, she asked to be near her relatives and family and to live in Wentworth Gardens, but the housing authority didn't give a damn. They were like, "Yeah, we gonna put you where we feel like it. You just gonna go where you gonna go." And they put her in some high-rise apartments in Abbott Homes. So Abbott Homes had about 3,600 people living in them. All of them were black, and majority of them were younger than 18. Everybody was poor that lived there. Like it may have been, a few, I guess you could say drug dealers that were living there too, but they mainly used the apartments as fronts, like dope spots and all of that. But for the most part, everyone that lived there was low income. And I'm talking about poor. Like people's income was around maybe 4,500 a year. But again, I had to remember that this was back in the 80s. So, money was a lot more back then. $4,500 in 1987 is equivalent to about $12,833 now. So, I guess it's not too bad. But, there were a lot of single family households or households that were run strictly by women. Now, the way that the apartments were set up, there were two-story row houses, which had like 30 of those, and then everything else was seven-story high rises. And guess where they put Ruthie? In the damn seven-story high rise where she did not want to be. Hmm.
Looking for unique, personalized gifts that stand out? Look no further than Trinity's Treasures, also known as 478 Customs. Listen, it's obvious I'm sipping from one of their incredible tumblers right now, and I can tell you, they're not just functional, they are fabulous. From custom t shirts to stylish trucker hats, dazzling jewelry, and even refurbished Nikes. Trinity's Treasures has something for everyone. Parents, need a thoughtful gift for your kids' teachers or a back to school bag for your kiddos? They've got that covered too. And guess what? They're a verified Houston County vendor. Plus, they offer discounts for military personnel, first responders, and y'all know how I feel about first responders because hello, nurses, educators, schools, nonprofits, and bulk orders too. So text 478-205-9472 or join their Facebook group 478 Customs. Tell them Kay sent you and get ready to be amazed by the most incredible personalized gear. Trinity's Treasures, where your treasures come to life.
She lived in a two-bedroom apartment with her daughter, Vernita, at first. And, living there was very difficult for her because Abbott Homes wasn't really the best place. In fact, it was probably one of the most dangerous projects in the city of Chicago's housing authority. It had dark hallways and the elevators didn't work. The stairwells were like pitch black with flashing bulbs that very much gave off The Shining. And literally every floor there were drug addicts, like, living there just strung out on cocaine and PCP, and, like, they're everywhere trying to get a fix. It was one of those places where you always had to, like, look over your shoulder because you never knew what was gonna happen. And, even though Ruthie told the housing authority that she had a fear of heights and that she didn't wanna live in a high-rise apartment, like I said, they didn't care. They just stuck her in one. And tried to, basically just tell her like this is all that's available. Even though there were several units available, there were basement units, but they put her on the fucking 11th floor of the building. She desperately wanted to move, but she couldn't afford it. Like her apartment was $46 a month. She was getting $154 in SSI, so she had no choice but to stay where she was. Now at this point, Vernita had been, she'd gotten out of jail and she ended up getting pregnant with her second child by her boyfriend, Lewis Butler. So it was a little homey because Vernita and her two kids were living in one room and then Ruthie was living in another. But Ruthie did not like Vernita's boyfriend, Lewis. She felt like he was way too much like Vernita's father, that, he had abandoned them all those years ago. Oddly enough, she liked Lewis at first, but the more that she got to know him and see that he started making moves like her baby daddy, oh, she ain't like that shit at all. She was like, nope, he remind me of your damn daddy. Just, she hated him. And I mean, Vernita's father was a deadbeat, so I get it. Like, he ditched as soon as he found out that Ruthie was pregnant. And it just got to the point that Ruthie felt like black men were all just no good assholes and that they all, all they wanted to do was flirt and fuck. So Vernita ended up moving out with her kids because she just couldn't deal with her mother's constant judgment about her choice in men. But I mean, really, is she wrong? Like, she trying to save you from the mistakes that she made, sis. So after Vernita moved out, Ruthie kind of went into a bit of a depression because she didn't have her grandbabies around anymore. They were keeping her happy and she started to get a little mean towards her neighbors, especially the ones that had kids cuz she didn't have her grandbabies anymore, so she figured she could be mean to the rest of the kids in the neighborhood. And she started threatening them with sticks and stuff, but they would just kind of antagonize her, so to speak. People would argue and cops would get called, but at the end of the day, they not really out there trying to break shit up. They just trying to go on about their business. But Ruthie would tell the police that she was scared that she was going to get robbed or that she was going to get mugged because of the arguments that she was having with these people in the neighborhood. So she ended up getting her locks changed twice. Like she was obsessed with her locks being changed. And the maintenance, if you want to call it that, they would, change the locks just cuz, and then after that it was just like, all right, you're just gonna have to, you just gonna have to deal with it. Ruthie tried to make the best of a bad situation for the most part. She would walk down the hallway and check the doors to see whose doors were unlocked. Like she was trying to make sure hers weren't, but if she saw a door that was unlocked, she would lock it. You know, she, she stayed locking doors left and right. And she didn't have her daughter there anymore. So now it's just her by herself. So she was starting to spiral out of control a little bit. She was becoming more and more mental. She would do backward shit like, okay, say for example, in the wintertime, she would go outside with no coat, not wearing the proper clothes, and make snow angels. But then in the summertime, she's wearing a winter coat and like several pair of pants. Like the fuck? What?
What universe are you living in, ma'am? On August 10th, 1986, Ruthie had her grandkids with her, and her oldest grandchild, Bobby, was like 4 at the time. She had to take him to the emergency room at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center because he had cuts on his face and his arms and his legs. Now, apparently, Ruthie had started acting crazy, and somehow Bobby had fallen down the stairs. Now, DFACS felt like she had pushed him and told the hospital this. And when they told Ruthie that they thought she had hurt that child, and she found out they thought she did it, oh, she went ape shit. Like to the point that she had to be put in leather restraints. They called Vernita and was like, "Hey, we need you to come get your baby because your mama about to go away for a while." Like they meant that shit. Even though it was never confirmed that she actually caused harm to her grandbaby, Ruthie was committed to the Illinois State Psychiatric Institute. And when she was there, they diagnosed her as a residual type schizophrenic, which is basically where, she was showing an absence of prominent behavioral problems and exhibiting some symptoms of schizophrenia, like social isolation, peculiar behavior, talking to oneself, or, just doing weird shit like collecting garbage, digressive speech, all of that. So she was in there for about a month and a half, and she got discharged on September 18th. And they told her that she needed to get some follow up care at the Mount Sinai Psychiatric Center. And her problems pretty much continued, but they kind of, I guess you could say, simmered down a bit. So at this point, Ruthie is going to the psychiatric center pretty much daily for help. And they're actually showing her, how she can better herself. They're showing her how to manage her household and how to, get her education. She's participating in the GED classes. She's doing group therapy sessions, everything. Now, when she started, she tested at a seventh grade level, but she was very eager to learn. By the following year after, she was admitted, she tested again at the ninth grade level and was ready to earn her GED. And she went to a lot of appointments at Mount Sinai Hospital in the psychiatric center. Like she would go there and pretty much have, like I said, daily appointments. And, they were nice enough to bring her back in their van, all of that. And she even started to make friends. Like she had this nice neighbor by the name of Deborah Lasley, who she would go talk to in the mornings before her appointments. And then in the afternoons, she would come home from her appointment and go talk to Deborah again. And they would pretty much just talk about things that were going on in the neighborhood and things that they would see. One thing that Ruthie would always talk about is how she wanted to get out of the apartment complex and move somewhere else. But again, her funds were limited. She was on a fixed income. She only got a certain amount of money every month, especially since the gangbangers were starting to take over everywhere. The building that she lived in had a lot of vacant apartments. And so gangbangers were starting to take over a lot of the vacant units by sneaking in a weird, weird way. Now, when I say sneaking in a weird way, like these units were kind of unique in a sense. See, the bathrooms all had medicine cabinets in them. Now, y'all know the medicine cabinets, you open it up and there's like these little miniature shelves and all of that. But you can easily rip off the medicine cabinet altogether. And behind the medicine cabinets were areas where it was just like pipes that you could just rip out and literally walk through. So it actually made it easier for anyone that was hiding or on the run because you could go from one apartment to another by simply sliding through the pipes. So God forbid if they rented out one of these units, it don't matter. Somebody could still get into that unit, never have to go through the front door. You know what I'm saying? It's giving very much Shawshank Redemption going through the pipes, but hey, I'm just saying. If you can fit your ass in there to move about, you a good one. But, if you add that with the dark corridors and the stairwells and the elevators that never fucking work, it makes it easy for people to commit crimes because it's going to take a while for the cops to get there to be able to respond anyway. The bad thing is when it came to Ruthie, a lot of people didn't take her seriously. Like to everybody else, she was just a bag lady because that's how she would dress. She was always cursing at people that she didn't even know, waving sticks at the teenagers in the neighborhood. They just labeled her crazy. At least right up until the end. See, Ruthie started getting it together, saying how she wanted to move out and, do different things. She was dressing better. She was being really nice. She was starting to even get control of her meds. She had gone as far as going to the Social Security office and speaking with hospital staff at Mount Sinai, and they helped her with her SSI, or as we know it as supplemental security income. She ended up getting approved for it because of her disability. And this was great because she went from getting $154 a month to $340 a month, which was more than double of what she was used to. And because of the fact that she had applied and had to wait, they turned around and made her payment retroactive to the date that she applied. Now she applied in like September of the year prior, and she got her first check in February of the next year. So she received a retroactive payment of $1,979. Now remember, this was back in the 80s. So if you calculate that based on today's dollar amount, it's around $8,300, which is a nice little chunk of change for somebody living in the projects. And for Ruthie, that's moving out the projects kind of money. Okay, baby. Ruthie had plans. She already knew what she wanted to do. She was like, listen, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to move out the projects. And she started kind of, buying a few things that she wanted. She bought a new winter coat because it is cold in Chi Town. She bought some clothes and some little household items, but other people were watching and seeing that she was out there, flexing a little bit, and folks started talking. And because of that, she started getting a lot of attention from people inside and outside the projects. And this is where I start to think,
No, you done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
respectfully, because I definitely respect my elders. But Miss Ruthie Mae, baby, you got to be careful who you let know your information like that. You can't be telling everybody that you got coins because everybody gonna start lurking. And that's exactly what they did. A Baptist preacher from Fort Lauderdale wrote her telling her, Ruthie Mae, I'm not kidding about loving you. I feel like you a part of my actual family. Yes, I do. Will you look into your pocketbook and give Jesus a beautiful love offering with the largest bill you have? Or maybe you want to write a nice check. Like, boy. Then she had another pastor from Ohio who offered to send her a special personal bottle of water from the River Jordan. Like, not that you out here trying to offer the Peter Pop Off miracle water. Like, if you don't get the entire fuck. Like, that's exactly what I thought about when I saw that. The Peter Pop Off miracle water. Boy, gone somewhere. But they offered to send her that in exchange for a donation. Then she had a pastor from New York that sent her a piece of sacred anointed wood, and she had to knock on it 3 times and sleep on it for one night, and then return it in the mail with $18. Y'all see where I'm going with this, right? Like this is insanity. Okay. She started getting a lot of attention from a lot of people trying to get her money. They're befriending her under false pretenses, and she just would take all the letters and stuff and, send back what they wanted. She felt important. People wanted to talk to her. She would read them and stack them up and place them in her house, tape them up everywhere. Another thing that she did that probably wasn't the best thing to do was she kept her money in the house on her or she would hide it. Now back then, a lot of people really didn't believe in putting money in banks, especially black folks. So they would just hide their money and hope that nobody found it. And that's just what Ruthie did. She hid her money in the house. And she played right into the hands of all these scammers and con artists. She would send money to these preachers, and her daughter Renita would just get so upset. And she would tell her, Mom, don't you understand? It's just a big con. And Ruthie would tell her, Baby, you don't have any faith. You don't believe in anything. Vernita believed it was a scam, which was true. Like, that's what she believed. And she told her mama, It's not that I don't believe in anything. I just know a con when I see one. Now, let me give y'all a quick little reminder that the way that the apartments are set up, people can literally move through the units without ever going outside and being seen. They could go through the pipes in the walls to an adjacent unit like it was nothing. And Ruthie had talked about it to one of her friends that she rode the van from the psychiatric center with. She told him, "Someone is threatening my life. I don't know what to do." And her friend told her, "Hey, maybe you need to tell the police what's going on. Tell somebody." But she was like, "No, I don't want to get anybody else involved." And she chose not to until April 22nd, 1987. Ruthie's coming back from one of her psychiatric appointments at Mount Sinai, and she gets to her apartment, and something just seemed like off to her. Now, because of the fact that she had these mental illnesses and her past behavior, a lot of people just kind of dismissed her. But this was one of the times that they probably shouldn't have. So Ruthie's in her apartment and she hears a noise, and it's like maybe 8:45 that evening. It's just her in the apartment, or at least it should be. And so she calls 911 and she tells them, "Hey, I'm a resident at 1440 West 13th Street, and some people next door are totally tearing this down." And the dispatcher asks her, "What are they doing, ma'am?" And you can't really understand what Ruthie's saying at first, but the dispatcher's like, "Oh, they want to break in?" And Ruthie says, "Yeah, they throwing the cabinet down." And he asks her, "From where?" And she tells him, "I'm in the projects. I'm on the other side. You can reach my bathroom. They want to come through the bathroom." So the dispatcher says, "All right, ma'am, at what address?" And she repeats her address, 1440 West 13th Street, apartment 1109. The elevator's working. And the reason why she said that is because a lot of times if the elevator wasn't working, police wouldn't even bother to respond. And I know that firsthand because I remember there was a particular project home, high rise, back in North Carolina where I used to live. And if the cops got called, they wouldn't even go up. Like instead, they would set the fire alarm off to kind of warn people that they were there to get them to stop doing whatever the fuck they were doing, like that got them called in the first place. But they never actually went up the stairs, which was crazy to me. So the dispatcher asked her for her name and she tells him Ruth McCoy. And he tells her, "All right, I'll send you to police." But the dispatcher didn't really know what she meant by they throw the cabinet down and they want to come through the bathroom. He puts the call in and a unit gets dispatched out to answer a disturbance with a neighbor. He didn't put it in there as a break-in attempt, even though he said, "Oh, they trying to break in," and she confirmed it. He put it in as a neighborly disturbance, which delays the response time. But another 911 call comes in, and this time it's from a woman that says she was walking through the hallway and she heard gunshots coming from Ruth's apartment. Then another neighbor calls at 9:04 p.m. and says she heard apartment 1109 with gunshots and screaming. So now the dispatchers know, okay, this woman was talking about something serious. And they send a few more units out there. About four different police officers get to Ruth's door at about 10 minutes after 9. They're banging on the door, "Chicago PD, open up." But there's no answer. Why the hell they didn't just bust the door down, knowing that multiple people reported gunshots from the apartment, is beyond me, but go off. They get dispatched back on the phone. They get them on the phone and they're telling them, "Hey, dispatch, can you get the complainant back on the line? We think somebody may be in there holding somebody." So the dispatcher calls Ruthie back, but the phone just rings and rings and rings, and the officers can hear it from the outside. Now, clue number two that something was up and that they should have broke the door down, but okay. So PD had two officers downstairs still who went over to the office to get a key. Um, shouldn't this have been done to begin with? But the key didn't work anyway because Ruthie had her locks changed. The cops are asking the neighbors, "Hey, do y'all know what's going on over here?" And neighbors are like, "Nope, we ain't got a clue." So they check the apartment next door, but it's vacant. Nobody's answering across the hall, and the neighbors that are on the floor said that they didn't see anything. All they know is that it's an elderly lady that lives in that apartment. She always answers the door though. But the cops are like, "Well, she ain't answering now." So they managed to get the phone number for the janitor, and the janitor tells them, "Yeah, I ain't got a key for that apartment. I can't help y'all." It's now 9:48 p.m. The cops have been outside Miss Ruthie's apartment for 38 minutes trying to figure out how to get into the apartment instead of just going the fuck in. And then they just gave up. Rather than bust the door down, they just gave up and left. So the next day, Ruthie's neighbor, Deborah Lasley, the one that she speaks with every day, she calls 911 and she says, "Hey, I stopped by Ruthie's apartment and she ain't answered her door. Normally, she and I talk every day. She always comes over after she gets back from her treatments. She stops by in the morning and she comes by in the afternoon, but she ain't come by at all. I know y'all were here the night before and I'm starting to get a little worried." So this time they get about a half dozen police officers and some of the Chicago Housing Authority security guards, and they go back to Ruthie's apartment. They knock and call, but no answer. Finally, one of the officers says, maybe we need to just go ahead and break the door down. Like, no shit, Sherlock. But the neighbors, for whatever reason, said, no, y'all don't want to do that. Because if you break the door down and nothing's wrong, she could sue y'all. And then on top of that, you got to get somebody to come secure it too. And not so surprisingly, the cops agree. They're thinking, yeah, let's not do that. We don't need no lawsuit. This is housing authority's problem. We don't want no smoke. And they left again. And once again, I'm thinking,
You done fucked up, right? No, 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 no. You know you done fucked up, right?
like, are you serious? I'd much rather chance having to restore a door than letting someone possibly suffer and die. Like, you must be out your rabbit ass mind. Thank God for friends like Deborah. Baby Deborah wasn't going to be happy until she knew for sure that her friend was okay. So she called back the next day, which was Friday, April 24th, and she said, "Hey, I still haven't heard from her. This ain't like her." So the cops, they're a little bit more prepared this time. They ended up getting a maintenance man to come over to Ruth's apartment with them, and the maintenance man brought a carpenter who drilled through the lock to the door to get it open without breaking it down. They get inside, and there they find Ruthie laying on the bedroom floor in a pool of blood with one hand over her chest, one shoe on and one shoe off. There were papers and magazines and coins thrown all about the floor. The police could just smell her rotting flesh. Ruthie had been laying there for about 2 days with no help. The cops look and they see that she's been shot 4 times, and they said that it was probably with a gun of medium caliber. The medical examiner, Dr. Choi, later discovered that one bullet went through her left shoulder, another bullet passed through her left thigh, a third bullet entered the right side of her abdomen, then pierced her liver and exited the left side of her abdomen. But the fatal shot was the one that went through her right arm, entered her chest, and severed a pulmonary vein. The ME said that her cause of death was considered internal bleeding. Um, yeah, that kind of happens when you get shot 4 fucking times and bullets penetrate multiple areas of your body. Like the fuck? The sad part is Ruthie didn't die immediately. When she got hit in that pulmonary vein, it didn't take her long to die, but she just didn't die immediately. She probably would have survived if she had gotten to the hospital, but of course they didn't do that because they left her sitting there for 2 days all because they were worried about breaking down the damn door. They knew whoever killed her had access to her apartment other than through the front door, meaning she was telling the truth about someone getting through her bathroom and throwing down the mirror. Ruth Mae McCoy was pronounced dead at Cook County Hospital at 4:35 p.m. Friday, April 24th, 1987. Now, of course, because she was killed in the Chicago Housing Authority projects, it didn't really make news. People are killed there all the time. The only outlet that really covered it was this black owned publication called Defender. And they talked about how Ruthie probably knew her attackers because they came through the bathroom. They came in and they killed her through the bathroom mirror. Mm. Sound familiar to y'all? Yeah. Now, there were individuals that initially were arrested because when the police actually did do their jobs and started combing and canvassing the area, they found some of Ruthie's belongings in other people's apartments. They went back and they looked in her apartment and they saw that the killers had indeed removed the medicine cabinet in the adjacent apartment and broke through Ruth's cabinet, then climbed through the wall into her apartment. And that's why she had, called 911 in the first place. At this point, everybody in the housing projects at Abbott is starting to find out about it. Like a few people were shocked, but again, this is Abbott. Everybody gets killed. But everybody's trying to figure out, okay, how are these people getting through these units like this? Because somebody had to see something. But I mean, you can slip through one apartment to another when you really know what you're doing. Because the cabinets ain't really secured like that. They're only secured by like 6 nails. So it doesn't take much to pop them off. This is the perfect escape route for a criminal that's trying to run from the cops or, something like that without being seen. What's really sad is the police didn't even bother to investigate after the initial discovery. They literally just ignored it. They said it would be too much work to investigate. Of course, they told the public, "Oh, there's gonna be a full-scale investigation and everybody's gonna be interviewed," meaning the officers, the security guards, the neighbors. But anytime it was questioned as to the progress of the investigation, it was conflicting answers of, "Oh, there's no real need for an investigation," or it would be, "Oh, it's still ongoing," which was bullshit. Captain Raymond Risley, who was over the Chicago Police Department at the time and was also the assistant to the superintendent, when he was questioned why the officers didn't break down the door, he said that the actions of the officers were warranted. But a lot of people are speaking out. They're like, if this call had come in from somebody other than the projects, they might actually still be alive. Y'all would have rushed to help them, which is very much true. Oddly enough, when the cops come to look at Ruthie's unit, they saw that it was now bare. Her relatives, had come in and gotten some things, but outside of that, they noticed that her medicine cabinet was gone, which was crazy because it was there the night that they discovered her body. So whoever broke in came back again through the bathroom and took it to make sure that there was no evidence left behind. On April 30th, 1987, a funeral was held for Ruthie and she was buried in Homewood that afternoon. On her obituary, it stated, "Life was hard for Ruthie Mae." Damn, like y'all couldn't think of anything else to put on there? Like, Jesus, Jesus, Devontae Christ. Now, it was stated that two individuals were arrested in connection to her murder because of the fact that they had some of her stolen property. 19-year-old Edwin Turner and 25-year-old John Hondros. Edward had her phone in his apartment. Now, remember, she called 911 from her phone. And back then, you didn't have cell phones. So she called 911 from her home phone. So whoever took it after she called 911 on April 22nd. And they're more than likely the ones that killed her because her door was still locked until April 24th when they drilled the door down. And they also had her television and her rocking chair. Looking for a book that resonates with your soul? Well, look no further than Author K, a master ghostwriter, storyteller, and author who weaves tales across multiple genres, from heartwarming romance to gripping urban horror. Whether you're searching for a contemporary romance that sweeps you off your feet or street lit that reflects the realities of life, Kay's writing speaks to the heart of every reader. Her work also passionately highlights the Black Lives Matter movement, bridging narratives that matter. Dive into the journey of discovery, empowerment, romance, and connection through Kay's incredible reads. Visit www.mizk.com today and dive into a world of unforgettable tales. That's www.mzkaye.com. Your next favorite book is just a click away. The two get charged with murder, home invasion, armed robbery, armed violence, and residential burglary. The prosecution thought that they broke in because they wanted to know where Ruthie stashed her money, because remember, she got a nice little chunk of change from getting her retroactive Social Security. And I mean, they weren't wrong. Like, it's not like she was necessarily hiding that she had this money. And both of them did have records. Edward, he didn't have any convictions, but he was out on bond on a charge of unlawful use of a weapon. And John, he had previous convictions for robbery, possession of a stolen vehicle, all of that. Ultimately, the two ended up being exonerated, so to speak, or found not guilty, and they walked away scot free. Meanwhile, a killer continued to slither through the walls of Abbott Homes projects. Now, I know y'all were expecting to hear a happy ending and hear that someone was arrested and convicted, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case with this story. And I know that's very unorthodox because all of my cases involve some type of conviction, but not the case with this scenario. In this particular situation, Ruthie's killer got away. But the mystery of her story and the uniqueness of what happened has lived on in the movie industry through movies starring the late Tony Todd as Candyman. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Ruthie Mae McCoy and the man or men in the mirror. And now it's time for Fair or Foul, where we look at the justice system to determine if instead of looking at the criminals, we look to see if what the cops did was right, or if they were just sitting on their lazy asses. And in this instance, they were sitting on their lazy asses. Mistake number one, the fact that the call initially was put in as a neighborly disturbance instead of an attempted break in is ridiculous to me. Like, you yourself, dispatch, said over the phone, oh, so they're trying to break in. And she said yes. And you put it in as a neighborly disturbance. Why? Regardless of whether she had mental issues or not, you still got to do the right thing and you put the call in the right way and you let the officers handle it when they get there. Mistake number two, the fact that they chose not to break her door down for fear of getting sued. Like, that's just plain stupid. You've got the guns. Do you do your daggum jobs? Like, at the end of the day, you have to know that, okay, hey, if we break this door down and she is in there, guess what? The same way that you brought the maintenance guy and the carpenter to drill, you should have did that day one, because then you could have just said, okay, hey, he can drill it back into place, or have the janitors or the maintenance men or whom the fuck ever do their jobs so that you can do yours. Bust the fucking door down, because at the end of the day, multiple people called in saying that they heard gunshots. Mistake number three, the fact that Miss Deborah had to call multiple times to get the cops to come out to basically do their jobs is ass to me. That woman rotted for 2 days. She lay on the floor with no one and nothing. She told you all that someone was breaking into her unit through the walls and you disregarded her. And yes, she had her mental health issues. Yes, she was a bit quirky. I'm not going to take that away from her. But at the end of the day, she was still a person. At the end of the day, you were still supposed to protect and serve, and you didn't. You literally said, hey, you know what? We ain't trying to get sued. This is the housing authority's problem. And then you just left. Do this woman some due diligence. Even after you found out that you fucked up, once you found out that you fucked up, an all-out investigation should have been had. It should have been had, because at the end of the day, somebody was able to come back into her apartment, break back into her apartment, steal the medicine cabinet, steal her phone and furniture. They were able to get not only a phone but furniture through the fucking mirror. So that should tell you, all right, it's big enough for somebody to slither their ass through here. They managed to get furniture through this motherfucker. Okay? Do your jobs. Give her the due diligence that she deserved. You went home to your sweet little lives and you left that woman there to rot. Like, what was the reason for that?
What was the reason?
Oof, Cardi child, I swear I don't know. Like, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why these officers didn't want to do their job. Like, why not just bust her door down? It's insane to me. And then mistake number four, when the so-called investigation occurred, y'all half-assed that too. You basically said, oh, we're investigating it, but oh, there's nothing to investigate. Our officers were warranted in what they did. No, they weren't. They weren't warranted at all. In fact, it was the exact opposite. There shouldn't have been an investigation as to why there should have been an investigation as to why they let her sit there for 2 days, as to why they had multiple phone calls saying that a woman that they heard gunshots coming from that apartment, that Miss Deborah had to call back multiple times. There should have been a time where y'all said, all right, hey, day one, get the fucking, carpenter over there to drill the door. And I keep trying to give the excuse of, well, this is the 80s. Maybe, they didn't know any better, but that's not a good enough excuse. If you had to break down the door, so what? If you had to secure the door afterwards, guess what? So be it. But if you had gotten there that first night and actually busted down the door, Ruthie might have survived. She may have lived. She may have been able to tell you who did it. But instead, you figured it was too much of a waste of your time. Like, it's already a miracle that you went up there in the first place. And the only reason you did that is because the elevators were working. She had to give the disclosure that the elevators were working. So, I mean, like, really, what the fuck? Like, this was just wrong all the way around. But I mean, hey, I guess in a sense, it gave some type of visionary, uh, uh,
inspiration to a horror classic, but it literally took someone actually dying for this horror movie to be made. Not saying that, the movie itself wasn't entertaining, it gave me fucking nightmares. I know that for sure. I will never fucking say that name 5 times, and I'm a grown A woman. You will never catch me saying that shit. But, at the end of the day, this was still somebody's life. You know what I'm saying? And this was somebody's life that was lost. That is all for this week's episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast. You can follow the show on the various streams on Instagram and TikTok at Infamous One Podcast. That's a number one, by the way, not spelled out, and you can leave a review there. On X, it's Infamous One Pod, where you can also leave a review. And y'all know we got to get into a few of those reviews now. The first review comes from Apple Podcast from Shanice W., and it's a 5-star review. It says, amazing podcast. I just found your podcast this week, 10 out of 20. I love it. It helps me get through my workday. You're an amazing storyteller, already halfway through 2024. Keep up an amazing job. Well, thank you. I don't know if she meant 10 out of 10 because 10 out of 20 is 50%. So hopefully she meant 10 out of 10. Like, I'm going to assume it's 10 out of 10 because it was a 5-star. But either way, thank you for such a wonderful review. I appreciate it. The next review actually comes from Facebook. Okay, so y'all know we got the Mobbers group and, new members are added all the time. But this particular review tickled the hell out of me. Like, I ain't gonna lie. So it came from Alex Jackson and it says, I appreciate getting jumped in. This podcast is so amazing, it's hard to avoid. I have binged every single episode until I was finally caught up. These cases and this woman have me in all kinds of emotions at work. My coworkers are so startled by my random laughing outbursts. Then they get concerned when my mouth is completely dropped on the floor. Someone has to explain to my boss that I'm listening to pure gold. I also can't drink at work, but I do enjoy a glass or two of Mikapmo tequila after. Don't ever, ever, ever stop feeding us. Also, is there any other 29-year-olds in the group? I feel like I'm the youngest nerd in the room. Oh, that tickled the mess out of me. Listen, okay? It's folks of all ages in the group, so you're not alone. Now, me personally, I'm out of that age group, but you're not alone nonetheless. Uh, but welcome to the mob. Don't get in trouble at work though, because I can't save you. Okay, we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now. But I'm glad that you listen and keep enjoying it. Now, if you're on Facebook, you can join the private discussion group, the Infamous Ones discussion group. If y'all don't know by now, answer the questions or it's no entry and you can hate from outside of the club. Okay? But once you get in, come on in, take a seat, tell us where you're from and what you're sipping on. The show streams on multiple streaming services like Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so on. So please leave a review. It only takes a few seconds. The reviews do matter. Um, let's hit these announcements real quick. Black Friday, which is November 27th, 2025. I'm going to be doing a virtual show. It is going to be a private show, and you have to be in the discussion group in order to have access. Now, it's going to be a little informal. So, it's like a meet and greet where you guys will be able to ask questions and whatnot. And there will be a mini case that I will be presenting. So, make sure you have you a glass of something to sip on, on that Black Friday and RSVP in the group. Okay. RSVP through the discussion group to receive your link via email. There is an event where you can RSVP through the Facebook group. So make sure to do that by November 26th so that you can get the link because you have to get it like a day before. Next Sunday kicks off the Celebrities Who Thought They Were About That Life series. It's coming back again, y'all. That's right, for the whole month of November. So I hope y'all are ready for the craziness because I got some wild ones for you kicking off November 9th. Okay. January 17th, 2026 will be the live show at Collingwood in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, I know a ton of you have registered already. Somebody emailed me and said that the website said Miami. Listen, the website has not been updated yet. It gets updated like every month or so. It is in Charlotte, North Carolina, y'all. It's a free event. Tickets are free, but you have to register in order to attend. You cannot just show up the day of. I've posted the link in the group for Eventbrite where you can go in and register. So if you have not done so already and you plan to attend the free show, please do so. That link will be up until December 31st. After that, if you have not registered,
I can't help you. Now, with the registration, for every ticket, you need to put the individual's name. I know I got to contact a few people because a few people registered for like 3 people, but they put the same name. You have to have each individual's name. Okay. So when you register, if it's going to be more than one person, each person's name needs to be on there. If you don't know the person's name yet, figure it out. That's all I can say. Okay. Um, there are tickets for alcohol that can be purchased at $20 per person in advance, and it gets you 4 drinks. And we're going to have a great bartender on deck from Tipsy Sips. So please, please purchase your alcohol in advance. If you purchase it the day of, the wristbands are $25. Individual drinks will not be sold at this event, they require packages, okay? But I mean, $20 for 4 drinks, that ain't bad at all. Hell, $25 for 4 drinks ain't bad. So get it, okay? The Infamous Ones does have spots available for sponsorships. The sponsorships for the show start at $50 and up. If you're interested in sponsorship, please send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com and I'll send you the information. If you would like to promote your business, there is a special for promo that's $30 that you can promote your business through the show. Now, the good thing is the show streams at about 2 to 4,000 streams per episode. So that's 2 to 4,000 people that will hear about your business. So make sure that you email. My personal website, mizk.com, is down at the moment for changes, and updates. But for all of my books and whatnot, if you want to purchase, you can email me. A new batch of orders are going out on Tuesday. New material is coming next month. My latest is that I'm working on, y'all know, is The Vow, which is a story of a woman that gave her all in her marriage, and when it didn't work out, she gets even. So get ready for that new release coming. If you want to support the show, or if you're feeling the spirit, meaning that liquor we've been sipping on, click the link at the bottom of the screen from whatever app you're listening to this episode on and hit listener support to subscribe. Subscriptions start at 99 cents, or you can donate via the Cash App to $infamous one pod. That's $INFAMOUSONEPOD. The donations go toward court documentations, phone calls, JPay, all of that great stuff. If you have a case that you want to hear more on that you feel has been ignored in the Black community, if you want to inquire on ad space, sponsorship, or if you want to leave a review, send an email to infamous1pod@gmail.com. That's INFAMOUSONEPOD@gmail.com. Once again, people, please share, share, share. This podcast is growing by the day and it means the world. So please continue to keep sharing. Until then, y'all know what it is. I'm your girl Kay. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see y'all next week with a new episode. Stay mobbing, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Infamous Ones, a true crime podcast hosted by Kay. Be sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.